Good evening. This is Beaty-Coffey of the Ministry of Uncover No More. I would like to read a portion of The Philosophy of Freedom, a modern philosophy of life developed by scientific method by Rudolf Steiner. Here is the copyright. I am going to go to a black screen. I decided when I made a conscious choice to order my reading, which is not satisfactory to me at this time, but I am going to persevere. Having relationships, quite frankly, in several different realms as a seer is several times today I have had to tell myself that I would not cry, and I'm not doing it, which means I am turning away from the literal hell door I closed with the Lord. That is mystery. It's in Revelation. Most people have discounted the Bible appropriately. I can't do that. And I equally cannot continue to be outraged by how the return testimony of the King of Kings is treated so point blank disrespectfully in the modern day, in the Americas, small A Americas. But that's only a bird's eye view, in that close up what I'm having to do to extract myself from the negativity and from a very failed life. I will not speak in my failed life, because that's all that I can remember now is discontent by pretty much everybody. And it's because I was a highly successful Christian woman and I fell apart. The Christian religion of Protestant worlds relies very heavily upon what you do and exactly how you do it. And there is no changing that. That mindset to a large degree. And so to have changed my mindset to be where I am means that I had to give up my life. And that is in the New Testament. And my life is a literal failure. I have been informed very liberally about that fact. So there's nothing left to do in my life, literally. And I'm choosing not to cry, which means I'm giving up my life again. And I've done this many times. And I have people who hate me but won't admit it because of the choices I made. And I'm tired of the cyclical discussions trying to get them to see it doesn't matter how much I testify. It just doesn't matter. The narrative never changes around me, and it's causing a despondency in my life, particularly since my parents leaving as negatively as that all happened because of the disinheritance. I just don't have anything of a support system around me. I have nothing, literally, of fellowship. And the one thing you do have, if you follow the rules properly, is you have a lot of support and fellowship. And so, it is good for me to study free will, because I'm going to tell the world for the rest of my life that girls don't have free will in the Protestant Catholic paradigm, and people in general haven't. It's a very controlling cult, all of those religions. Doctrines, denominations, it's just all very, if you don't follow the rules, you're not going to be accepted. And so, what does the book of Revelation talk about? And not just Revelation in the New Testament, but that they were in caves, they dwelt in caves, they got their dead back. That's in Hebrews, actually, because I get my dead back. I'm finding myself having to say things that I said some years ago. I had an interesting conversation, and I've said this several times, of a positive nature, close up and in some of my places of fellowship, where I am getting some friends, that being a 50-year Christian woman, as large a family as I have, what is beginning to save me, or what a dear friend of mine on Twitter, it's on uncovernomore.blog, what he said to me, and I did confirm in DM that he is he, because he's having to keep his identity to himself, just like at the God Pod show, at the Good God Above and the God Pod show. See, those are cartoon characters, but their voices, they're real people now, aren't they? Yes. And I have people in my life that don't want to admit that they've caused trouble for me, because they don't want to know about my our, it's not just mine, our other world. And I'm devastated, I'm despondent, and so I need to stop this process. I have lost so many relationships because of this disparity of the realms, that I need to only focus on the positive side, because particularly during Thanksgiving and Christmas, I'm trying to say to myself and to others, this Christmas I want a different narrative, because I go into metaphysical pain so fast it makes my head spin, and everybody thinks that's just mental illness, and I'm going to tell you that's bullshit. I've raised 10 children. I made sure that they were the ones that chose whether or not they put themselves on medication for some of their autistic side issues. They're very smart, lovely individuals, and they have autistic, dyslexic, dysgraphic symptoms, just like their parents, and they're lovely people, and it's nobody's business what they do in their private lives. And I wanted to make sure that they were adults as they made choices about some things. I am not a fan of the public schools requiring Ritalin to be fed to children. I have every right to say that as a responsible parent. I am not viewed as a responsible parent by many, many people. And so I lost my life. Goodbye, life. The self-talk is very negative for me, and that's what I was saying. It's on uncovernomore.blog, which is being given back to me. I'm going to discover it yet again, which is exciting to me. I'm glad I'm going to figure out what I need to do with it, instead of always trying to close it down, because it's so hard to be Beaty-Coffey of the Ministry of Uncover No More. It's just hard to be me. People still want me to change to suit them. And I was just like, oh my God. Yes. I can't stay upset any longer. No. And I didn't want you to change either. I wanted an acceptance realm. And so someone came up to me, and then elsewhere I have shared here recently, because I have found the way for many of us, that I've heard story after story of how people have been destroyed by expectations in religious structures. It's a constant narrative that many people I'm among are dealing with. And I think we may underestimate its power in our lives. So if I sounded negative, I'm going to tell you, I think you're underestimating the power of cultish religion in your thought life. And that is what my friend on uncovernomore.blog, I just put a beautiful article up today because I was able to do some spiritual work because I can hear my people in the trees, and I had actually done some spiritual work with my father as it concerns trees. And so it's there, and then, but in the course of that whole pinned article, something else is pinned on my main Twitter now. The gentleman came in and talked about, in great compassion said, here's an idea, which I took because he understands somehow. And, he talked about how you're rewiring your brain. And I was like, oh, wow, he understands. Because that is what I'm doing, but I don't have anybody on the inside commiserating with me in that. And I never have. And I can see myself in my spiritual world. It's like, why aren't you crying? Why aren't you crying? It's because I am healing, and it took years, and I've cried on videos, and I've cried in coffee shops, and I've cried in my room, and I cried last week, and I cried this week, but it's waning because I really did lose my life. It's really gone, all of it, and I need to learn to see that as a relief, because that woman had too much on her shoulders. And this is a new life where it's the hardest, and I've already told somebody this, where it's the hardest is that you have to walk off without proper reconciliation because other people are not apologizing for their making a life like mine difficult. And that's what I was telling this lady and a few other people in different conversations this week. I said, look, I'm a sorceress, which a lot of people accept that. I don't have a problem with that. And also know that that's not necessarily a person of darkness, like that would promote, say, infant sacrifice or something. I mean, there's a lot of us that are much more balanced in this day and age, and I'm including my whole family. So it's a mixed up world for me at this point. I said, I'm a sorceress, told her, and I said, here's what's saving me. As my friend on the blog said, this is what is rewiring my brain. Philosophy, and I have landed on 2 right now, and poetry. And my poetry, my real literature journey started with C.S. Lewis's Screwtape Letters years ago. I am a writer and good at it, but my new journey, after being as busy as I was and raising a family and house church and all of that life that is no longer beautiful. See, I can. I had to tell somebody today, and I even got fussed at for repeating. I said, I need to repeat this because I want you to understand. And they don't like to hear what's going on with my life anymore. But I said, I cannot feel love from other people anymore. I cannot feel love from other people anymore. And there is nobody to fix me. I'm just going to have to accept myself and the limitations of what has happened to me and move on. No, I don't need medication. No, I don't need to change anything. But I do miss people. I always have, and I always will. So there's no solve there. I will never be able to feel love from other people. I can't, is how far that went metaphysically. I'm an archangel, and how it was revealed to me, what it did to different situations in my life, different people, is unavoidable, and it is what it is. And yes, I am having to rewire my brain, and other people don't understand that that is a necessity to change this paradigm that religion brings upon people constantly. And that's why I told the lady who was talking to me, and she's like, yes, I'm dealing with some of the things that she had heard a couple of us talking in a back room, and she's like, I'm dealing with some of this, and I've heard of Jung, J-U-N-G, Carl Jung, who is one of the two philosophers that I'm dealing with, and of course I'm about to read The Philosophy of Freedom by Rudolf Steiner, a little portion, before I move on to the next 3 chapters. I'm finishing up the first 3 chapters, so I'm giving you a soliloquy of some of the things that are going on under the surface at the same time as I rewire my brain. I appreciated that way of saying it. And I told her, philosophy and poetry is how I'm coming back. It's an arduous process, and I would have liked to have shared it. And the answer was no. And I'm devastated. I'm devastated. And there's no way around this. But I'm determined that it's not a hell, that I'm going to make it a place of beauty for myself. And if I ever am able to have people around me again in some way, in only the kindest of ways, it won't be their returning, it will be completely different relationships. There is no going back. I don't want anything to do with my past life. I tried. I failed. They won. Their perspectives won. And I am pretty much meaningless since I decided to walk off of Christianity. All of it. And I would even go back in because I don't believe in walking off of the beauty pot, the sides of beauty, but you have to follow the rules 100% or you're going to be done there. A very, very ugly taskmaster. Taskmaster is cultish religion. So this is from section 3, why the desire for knowledge is fundamental. And I do desire knowledge. And I do think that may be a problem with some of the people close up, is not wanting to spend the time gaining knowledge to fill up what had to be removed because of cultishness. And I will tell you, it's a conscious choice, and no, I don't want to do it sometimes, but when I get started and I need to finish, in other words, finish the habit change, I need to spend large portions of my time reading and arting and putting it up on blogs and encouraging others and encouraging myself to rewire my brain, to think again. Because particularly as a woman, you're not allowed to think in the Christian paradigm. You behave yourself, or else. And I've experienced a tremendous amount of or else. Said the wrong thing a billion times, hurt people supposedly, when I was basically saying, no, you're not going to control me, and you're not going to control my daughters, and there's a way to live that doesn't have to follow these rules to the T and still is beautiful and righteous and acceptable before God. Before God. They don't even believe in goddess. Girl, angels, archangels, and yet I am one. So, yeah, no. Fuck off. And occasionally my hard side comes out. I've been through a little bit this week, So in this third section, materialism can never offer a satisfactory explanation of the world. And then later on, because he was going through different paradigms of people, idealism, dualism, monism, and materialism can never offer a satisfactory explanation of the world. And let me tell you, we're in a materialistic world. Period. Against all these theories, we must urge the fact that we meet with the basal and fundamental opposition first in our own consciousness. It is we ourselves who break away from the bosom of nature and contrast ourselves as self with the world. Goethe, that is Goethe, he is Steiner doesn't just write his own, he quotes others, and sometimes he takes exception, and then other times he proves a point, and I appreciate about that. It seems to me to be a very humble philosopher. Goethe has given classic expression to this in his essay, Nature. And I quote, "Living in the midst of her, in parentheses, nature, we are strangers to her. Ceaselessly she speaks to us, yet betrays none of her secrets." But Goethe knows the reverse side too, and I quote, "Mankind is all in her, and she in all mankind." Now this is Beaty-Coffey of the Ministry of Uncovering, where I've got poetry that I put both my hands on the trunk of a tree, and a poem came forth from the tree and I. So I'm the exact opposite. And I never met Rudolf Steiner, but I could latch on to much of what he says, and I read some history of him, and indeed, he, even at a very young age, his philosophical abilities were coming forth. And it was duly noted that those who use geometry, that there is something to geometry and philosophy for some of us. And I've already got the blog article up. It just blessed me and made me a little bit whole in how ripped up I've become internally because of my ministry. What had to happen, it couldn't have happened any other way. And I guess people take a long time forgiving you for it. And if they don't see the positive side, then it's a mess. It's a mess. It's an egotistical mess. And that's what I'm still living in the middle of. But it encouraged me, and I actually put it on a blog article because I have triangles and circles and shapes all over my artwork when I'm reading people like him. So what should Kara do? She should spend large portions of her day reading and discussing with myself and putting it on my blogs and coloring and painting. I did some painting today because of emotional pain. And I pulled back out Paganism by Joyce and River Higginbotham. I'm going to finish it. I'm not necessarily going to do any more artwork, but I am going to finish the book. The Philosophy of Freedom, I'm going to push myself. So this is going to finish up the first 3 chapters, and I have artwork already made and rooms thrown for the messages this time, my going through it. And so I'm heading into 4, 5, and 6 tomorrow. A God pod to do tomorrow. I'm excited for that. But see, in my head, because of the fellowship that's around me that's too negative and too discouraging, oh, I won't do that God pod. See, and I've got to stop it. They need me and I need them. And I have no question in my mind about that. The philosophers need me and I need them. Poets need me and I need them, because this is universalism, and we even accept the Protestants and Catholics as long as they clean up their act. And how about that Bernie Sanders having to call down those 2 dudes, one of the, either a representative or senator, picking a fight with a Teamster today. Everybody's just ready to brawl. Well, not some of us, and I'm so grateful for Bernie Sanders today and his message of peace since the 70s. I'm grateful for Rudolf Steiner and Carl Jung. I'm grateful for T.S. Eliot, Elizabeth and Robert Barrett Browning. Henry Wadsworth Longfellow is right beside me. Robert Frost is here somewhere with my stuff. And I'm reading Ambassador Joseph Wilson's The Politics of Truth. It's fascinating, it's sad, difficult story. Just like Compromise by Peter Straub. Good stories, but real, convoluted, and necessary to our human history. I may cry real tears again, and it'll be as we lose democracy, if that's what happened. I'm just trying to distance myself a little and heal a little more before that next election. This is Beaty-Coffey.